Good morning and welcome to the Town of Victoria Park Anzac Day dawn service. My name is Brian Oliver, the Deputy Mayor of the Town of Victoria Park, and I'll be your host this morning. I wish to extend a warm welcome to serving and ex-service personnel, Steve Irons, Federal Member for Swan, Alison Cook, Electorate Officer, to Ben Wyatt, MLA, Member for Victoria Park, Mayor Trevor Vaughan, Town of Victoria Park, Town of Victoria Park Councillors, Anthony Valletta, CEO, Town of Victoria Park, Kelvin Lydiard, RSL Victoria Park Sub-Branch, Warrant Officer Michael Saunders, Reverend Georgina Hawley and Reverend K. Wee Sim, community members all. We stand here on this day each year to remember all the men and women in our armed forces who have served their nation with great distinction, pride and courage in all wars, conflicts and peacekeeping efforts. Today, we are a solemn nation, honouring those who fought for our freedom, who were brave for us and who died for us. We come here today to remember them, to remember the virtues of our Anzacs and the sacrifices they laid down for their homeland. I am honoured to be part of this most special ceremony. I will now welcome Reverend Georgina Hawley from St. Peter's Anglican Church to lead us in prayer.
God of liberty and love, we bring our prayerful thanks to you this Anzac Day for the peace and the security we enjoy in Australia. We remember those who in time of war faithfully served their country, for those who suffered and died in all the wars involving Australians. The Second Boer War, the Boxer Rebellion, World War I, Russian Civil War, World War II, Malayan Emergency, Korean War, Borneo Confrontation, Vietnam, Gulf War, Afghanistan, Iraq, Operation Astute, and ISIL. We remember their courage and commitment in maintaining Australian security and peace. We pray for their families, comrades, and for ourselves, whose freedom was won at such a cost. Make us a people passionate for peace, and hasten the day when nation shall not lift up arms against nation, and neither will they learn war anymore. This we pray in the name of the one who gave his life for the sake of the world, Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Hawley. Town of Victoria Park Mayor Trevor Vaughan will now deliver the mayoral address.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2017 Anzac Day dawn service. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Noongar people, and pay my respect to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the tradition, the culture and hopes of Indigenous Australians. Thank you for joining us here today in the pre-dawn light under these flags to remember our fallen soldiers. War is something few of us have experienced, a burden that those lucky enough to survive carry on for a lifetime. The men and women are here to have looked directly into the face of war, and today we respect and remember these brave heroes who have given everything for their country and their people. Let us honour them today and every day, these men and women who fought so courageously, and let us be proud of the legacy that they have left. 2017 marks a significant year in the commemoration of the centenary of World War I. Historians describe 2017 as the worst year of the war. It surely was. Last year, I visited the Western Front, where many Australians died. It was very sad and sobering to visit the graves of these soldiers and to see how many of these had the date 1917 inscribed on their tombstones. The loss of life in 2017 was shocking, the suffering of the troops beyond our understanding. As they shivered in trenches and dugouts, enduring the harshest winter for decades in northern Europe, Australia's soldiers would have wondered if 2017 would be as bad as 2016. As it turned out, 2017 was far worse, with vast casualties under appalling conditions. It was a period that ended much as it had begun, with the diggers bogged in the muddy trenches of France and Belgium. Over 1917, great battles were fought in Bellecourt, Messines, and in the third battle, the Ypres. Every one of the 60 Australian battalions to fight on the Western Front passed through Ypres at some time during the war. In 8 weeks of fighting in Ypres in 2017, Australian forces incurred 38,000 casualties. There was a total of 76,836 Australian casualties recorded in 1917, comprising 40% of all Australian deaths in World War I. They sacrificed the joy of being with friends, family, and their children so that we could experience what they sacrificed. Anzac spirit lives on in the hearts and minds of all of us as we acknowledge the bravery and sacrifices of those who contributed to shaping the identity of this proud nation. This spirit is our legacy and gives us the ability to face challenges together as a nation, to be courageous, determined, self-reliant and strong. I would like to dedicate this service to Ross Kendall, who sadly passed away last year. Ross, together with a number of other local residents, started the dawn service in Memorial Gardens in 1982. The first service was attended by a handful of people, and through his dedication has grown to the size it is today. As dawn breaks, full of hope and renewal, we will remember those brave souls who made the ultimate sacrifice for freedom and country, lest we forget.
Thank you, Mayor Vaughan. I wish to welcome Warrant Officer Michael Saunders to deliver the commemorative address.
Anzac Day marks the anniversary of the landings on Gallipoli in 1915. The first major military action fought by Australians and New Zealand forces during the First World War. It is also the day on which we remember all Australians who have served and died in war and on operational service. 2017 holds a special significance as the 75th anniversary of the darkest year in the history of the Royal Australian Navy. By the end of 1942, HMAS ships Perth, Yarra, Cuttable, Canberra, Vampire, Voyager, Nestor and Armidale, together with more than 600 men, had all joined the growing list of RAN wartime losses in a year during which there was little to celebrate. For Australia's population at the time, the year began with a growing sense of trepidation as the war spread to the Asia-Pacific following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. The war that had begun in Europe 2 years earlier had become a truly global conflict. The attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 created genuine concern throughout Australia. The Japanese forces had gained momentum southwards, and soon Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies had fallen. Never in Australia's short, modern history had our shores been under more immediate threat. Those concerns were realised on 19 February 1942 when Darwin suffered its first Japanese air raid. The two air raids that day killed 235 people and wounded a further 300 to 400. The war had arrived on Australia's doorstep. On the night of the 28th of February 1942, HMAS Perth, alongside American cruiser USS Houston, was sunk with 353 crew following a fierce sea battle against the Imperial Japanese Navy off the northwest tip of Java in Indonesia, where the wrecks remain today. It was not long before the units of the Australian and United States Navies were in action in the Coral Sea, thwarting Japanese attempts to invade Port Moresby by sea. That battle between the US and Japanese carrier fleets raged for 3 days. It was the first great naval action fought between aircraft carriers. The Battle of the Coral Sea was significant as a strategic victory for the Allies. It marked the closest approach of hostile naval forces in strength to our coastline. It broke the long series of Japanese victories, and it showed that the Imperial Japanese Navy could be defeated. The Battle of the Coral Sea is also significant in the history of our close relationship with the United States. Indeed, in many ways, it served as the foundation for a strong and enduring alliance. Allied success in the Battle of the Coral Sea had tactical implications for the Japanese forces, who were then driven to make landward approaches from the northern coast of New Guinea to capture Port Moresby. For Australians, the result would be the epic, bitterly fought struggle on land which began at Kokoda, and one which eventually drove the Japanese completely out of New Guinea in 1943. In 1942, men and women at home worked as never before to build new warships. In our naval dockyards, Australians repaired the battle damage of those ships that had been in action and prepared them to return to war. Australian men and women built modern fighter aircraft in makeshift factories. In field hospitals and in Australia, the wounded were operated on by skilled surgeons and nursed back to fitness needed to fight again. Women of the Land Army fed Australians and helped feed people of the United Kingdom so they could sustain their fight against Nazi Germany. No wonder we call the men and women that worked at home and fought overseas in World War II the heroic generation. Today, 75 years on from the epic battle of 1942, we cherish those World War II veterans amongst us. We honour their lost comrades, whose young faces they remember, but who never come home and who we never know, only know through photographs. We remember those who returned and became our parents, our grandparents, and our friends. This morning, the last post sounds for them all. Some lie in battlefield cemeteries, some in jungles and oceans, lost with their aircraft, our sailors with their ships on the seafloor. The last post sounds for them all and all our veterans, those we knew and those that served and died in service to Australia. In all the wars of the 20th century and in this century, we remember them with pride and gratitude, lest we forget.
Thank you, Warrant Officer Saunders. The Variety Youth Choir will now sing for us. If you wish, please join in with the choir in singing Amazing Grace, the words of which can be found in your program. Thank you to the members of the Variety Youth Choir who have joined us this morning. I would like to welcome Reverend K. Wee Sim, who is going to deliver the Lord's Prayer.
Please join me together to pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend K. Wee Sim. Please welcome head boy and head girl from Ursula Frayne Catholic College, Raymond Yong and Mishka Sally, to share with us what Anzac Day means to them.
The Australian. The skies that arch his land were blue. His bush-born winds were warm and sweet, and yet from earliest hours he knew the tides of victory and defeat. From fierce floods thundering at his birth, from red droughts ravening while he played, he learned to fear no foes on earth, the bravest thing God ever made. The bugles of the motherland rang ceaselessly across the sea, to call him and his lean brown band to shape imperial destiny. He went, by youth's grave purpose willed, the goal unknown, the cost unweighed, the promise of his blood fulfilled, the bravest thing God ever made. We know it is our deathless pride, the splendor of his first fierce blow. How reckless, glorious, undenied, he stormed those steel-lined cliffs we know, and none who saw him scale the height behind his reeking bayonet blade would rob him of his title right, the bravest thing God ever made. Bravest where half a world of men are brave beyond all earth's rewards, so stoutly none shall charge again, till the last breaking of the swords. Wounded or hale, won home from war, or yonder by the lone pine laid, give him his due forevermore, the bravest thing God ever made.
Today, we honour the legend of the Anzac, which was one of hope, mateship, and courage. This morning we stand in silence and reverence while we reflect and pray and mourn. We acknowledge those who had to fight and those who lost their lives for our gain. I find it challenging to imagine what the Anzacs felt or experienced. I find it hard to relate to the fear and the extreme amount of courage that it would have taken to stand up and fight for what they didn't know then was our freedom today. We've lived sheltered lives, and although it's challenging to try and understand what the Anzacs would have gone through, I do understand the power of hope. It is through hope that we are able to pull through difficult times as a nation. I understand the importance of solidarity and unity. By looking at the Anzacs, we learn what it truly means to be Australian. Although to be Australian today looks very different to what it looked like 102 years ago, the idea is still the same, to not leave a soldier behind. And I know that thanks to the efforts of the Anzacs, their spirit and their sacrifice, we live a very good life. I do understand the power of faith and compassion, which, like mateship, is fundamental in shaping Australian identity today. I understand that together we stand here this morning, together in silence, just as the Anzacs did. It was on this day where our identity and nationwide values were shaped. It was on this day of conflict and division that came nationwide unity and reverence. It was on this day where we learned about the importance of togetherness. So as you go about your day today, feel the warmth and reverence that surrounds you. In honour of our fallen soldiers, open your arms, open your heart to all Australians, and join in them in acknowledging this day. This morning we stand in silence. We stand in respect. We acknowledge those who fought and those who died. We stand in hope and we stand together, lest we forget.
Thank you, Raymond and Mishka. Paul Solomon and Hayden Turton from Kent Street Senior High School will now also share with us what Anzac Day means to them.
When World War I broke out in 1914, Australia had only been a nation for 13 years. Our new nation was eager to establish its reputation amongst the nations of the world, so eagerly agreed to the call from England. In an attempt to knock Turkey out of the war and open a new supply route to Russia, Australian and New Zealand troops, along with those of other nations, landed in the Dardanelles on the 25th of April 1915. The battle quickly turned into a stalemate. Over 8,000 Australians died. This had a profound impact on the Australian nation, and the 25th of April became a day to remember the supreme sacrifice that Australian soldiers have made.
Although the Gallipoli campaign failed in its military objectives, the Australian and New Zealand actions during the campaign left us all a powerful legacy. The creation of the Anzac legend has become an important part in the Australian identity. Anzac Day to us isn't just about Gallipoli, it's about the sacrifice that individual men and women of this country have made and continue to make so the rest of us live our lives in safety. It is the height of freedom, courage, mateship, and everything that our wonderful country offers us. Although it's associated with the Anzacs of Gallipoli, we commemorate with everyone who fought on the battlefield in the past.
Thank you, Paul and Hayden. The laying of the wreaths will now commence. Please come forward to lay your wreath as I call your name. Kelvin Lydiard, Victoria Park, RSL. Steve Irons, Federal Member for Swan. Alison Cook, Electorate Officer to Ben White, MLA, Member for Victoria Park. Mayor Trevor Vaughan. Councillors from the town of Victoria Park, Vicki Potter, Vince Maxwell and Jennifer Ammons Noble. Anthony Valletta, Town of Victoria Park. Warrant Officer Michael Saunders. Legatee John Murphy, Legacy. Kath Snell, Volunteer Task Force. Luke Garswood, Connect Vic Park. Mark Perslow, Perslow Funeral Homes. Ursula Frayne, Catholic College. The Victoria Park Scout Group. The First Carlisle Scout Group. Galaxy Guides. I now invite members of the public to lay their wreaths. please stand for the reading of the Ode by Kelvin Lydiard of the Victoria Park RSL sub-branch.
They went with songs to the battle, straight of arm, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against those they encountered. They died with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them, lest we forget.
On guard! Back turn! Hoot! On guard! Silent!
On this day, above all days, we recall those who served in war and who did not return to receive the grateful thanks of the nation. We remember those who still sleep where they were laid, amid the holly scrub in the valleys and on the ridges of Gallipoli, on the rocky terraced hills of Palestine, and in the lovely cemeteries of France. We remember those who lie asleep in ground beneath the shimmering haze of the Libyan desert, of Bardia, Derna and Tobruk, and amid the mountain passes and olive groves of Greece and Crete, and the rugged snow-capped hills of Lebanon and Syria. We remember those who lie in the rank jungles of Malaya and Burma, in New Guinea and in the distant isles of the Pacific. We remember those who lie buried amid loving friends in our motherland and in our own far north. We remember those who lie in unknown resting places in almost every land, and those gallant sailors whose grave is the unending sea. Especially do we remember those who died as prisoners of war, remote from their homeland and from the comforting presence of their kith and kin. We think of those of our women's services who gave their lives in our own foreign lands and at sea, and of those who proved to be, in much more than name, the sisters of our fighting men. We recall too the staunch friends who fought beside our soldiers on the first Anzac Day, the soldiers of New Zealand, who helped to create the name Anzac. We recall all those who gave their lives in the Royal Navy, the British Army, the Royal Air Force, the Merchant Service, and in other British and Dominion forces. And we think of those British men and women who fell when, for the second time in history, their nation and its kindred stood alone against the overwhelming might of an oppressor. We think of every man and woman who in those crucial hours died so that the lights of freedom and humanity might continue to shine. We think of those gallant men and women who died in Korea, Malaya, Borneo and Vietnam, as well as peacekeeping forces and on humanitarian missions, defending the Commonwealth and other countries of the free world against a common enemy. May these all rest proudly in the knowledge of their achievement, and may we and our successors in that heritage prove worthy of their sacrifice. May they forever rest in peace, lest we forget.
Would you please remain standing for the singing of the New Zealand National Anthem, sung by Astrid Repepi. This will be followed by the Australian Anthem, led by the Variety Youth Choir.
E hoa atua o ngā iwi mātaura a ta whakarongona me aroha noa kia hua ko te pai kia tauto a ta whai mana ki tia mai ao te aroa God of nation at thy feet in the bonds of love we meet. Hear our voices, we entreat. God defend our free land. God Pacific's triple star from the the shafts of strife and war. Make her praises heard afar. God defend New Zealand. Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant Southern Cross, we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this commonwealth of ours renowned through all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless plains to share. With courage let our souls combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. I'd like to say a special thank you to the following people for their participation this morning. Mr. Kelvin Lydiard, Victoria Park RSL Sub-Branch, Mayor of the Town of Victoria Park, Trevor Vaughan, Town of Victoria Park Councillor Vicki Potter, Reverend Georgina Hawley and Reverend K. Wee Sim from St. Peter's Anglican Church, Warrant Officer Michael Saunders, our bugler from the Victoria Park Brass Band, Tracy Harris, our piper, Viv Riley, students and representatives from Ursula Frayne Catholic College and Kent Street Senior High School, Air Force Cadets, the Scouts and Guides, the Variety Youth Choir, and Astrid Repepi. And a special thanks to our friends from the Victoria Park Rotary Club who have been busy barbecuing sausages and onions for us all to join after this ceremony. So on that note, just to let you know that there is tea and coffee at the back here. There is also some down here on Harvey Street. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. That concludes this morning's ceremony.